Well, hello, David Talp here from nextlevelguitar.com. How you doing, good people? Hope everything is going well and you are rocking on. Today I want to talk about how to beef up your sound a little bit by maybe some new chord voicings that you're not familiar with, or some different ways of playing them that might, inspire you to throw some of these into your progressions or melody lines or into your original music and whatnot. I find them pretty useful. What I'm talking about is some different ways of playing suspended chords, and we're going to add some low bass notes to them. You probably know quite a few suspended chords now because they're in so many songs. Like, if you're playing clean, you might know D, D sus2, D sus4. You can do these with a lot of chords. A minor, A sus2, A sus4. There's so many suspended and add chords, and they sound so great. Sounds so great when you kind of throw them into your songs, right? And to embellish certain chords. But let's talk about maybe adding some distortion and how you can really use these to thicken and fatten up by playing them with bar chords and then adding a low bass note. Now, suspended chords really sound very lingering. They're very full sounding. And that's how if you can train your ear. Remember, one of the most important things you could do as a musician is really develop that ear. Is develop your ear to hear that lingering sound. That sounds very different. Like if I play a C suspended second bar chord, and I'll flash these in text on the screen, and basically you're barring that with one finger and then playing with just your third and fourth. So it kind of looks like playing this off the fifth string root. It kind of looks like a sixth string minor chord that you're playing on the fifth string. It sounds very different than like a C major chord. C major is just very kind of happy and bright, whereas this suspended chord is kind of lingering. The thing you want to keep in mind is that a suspended chord is really not a major chord or a minor chord, okay? Because there's no third in it. The difference between a major chord and a minor chord is the major chord is made up of a root third and fifth, first, third, and fifth degrees of the major scale. The third is a major third, whereas a minor chord is made up of a root flat third and fifth, okay? So that's how you can always tell the difference between a major chord and a minor chord. The minor chord, whether it's a minor, minor 7, minor 9th, minor 7 flat 5, whatever, they all have that flat third for the most part. And the major chords sound happy and bright, while your minor chords sound very kind of dark. Right? It's playing a D minor open. Okay, so the suspended chords don't have the third. Like a suspended second, like I was playing, is a root second and fifth, or a suspended fourth is a root fourth and fifth. So there's no third in that chord to kind of clash against whether it be a major third or a minor chord. So suspended chords work well with major or minor chords, and that's why in a lot of songs you always see like D, D sus2, D sus4, D, or the same thing with like D minor, D minor, D sus4, D, D sus2, D minor. They work with either, and you want to embrace that and kind of exploit it. So when you're playing a suspended chord, let's just say off the fifth string root, if you don't know this voicing, first finger, we'll play a C suspended second. First finger on the third fret of the A string. You are, for now, not playing the low E string. And then your third finger and fourth fingers on the fifth fret of the D and the G string. And then your first finger catches that B and high E. So you get this chord. That's a C sus2. My root note is at the third fret, C. I move it up a whole step to the D note root, becomes a D sus2. This is a movable bar chord. Move it up a whole step again, or 2 frets, E sus2. So when you're playing a song and you have a C chord or a D chord or whatever, try to grab the sus2 or the sus4 and play it right after that major or minor, or throw it in there and see how you like it. One really good use that I found for it is if you add distortion to that chord. Many chords don't sound really good when you start adding lots and lots of gain because the frequencies start to clash and the chord gets all muddy. A perfect example is I just try playing a major 7th chord with a lot of distortion. It sounds terrible. But some chords sound really good with a lot of gain and really full. And one of them is this suspended second on this bar chord, or the suspended fourth, right? So let's add some gain. I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm just playing through a Fender Hot Rod DeVille tube amp 212 combo amp, and I'm just running the guitar straight into the amp and just using the gain in the amp. That's it, no other effects. Now let's play that C sus2 again, but this time, check this out, I have a lot of gain on it. That's a big sounding chord. So I have a lot of gain, but not enough to where when I pick the notes, you could still delineate the notes, right? All right, so let's say you're like, David Taup, I know that chord already, right? Okay, you explained it. But here's the thing I want you to try. Try adding the low bass note to that chord, and it's even huger sounding. So all you have to do, which is really easy, is just, you're playing the C sus2 figure on this A string root and sliding it to wherever you want it, right? So all you do is, instead of not playing the low E string, now just pick that first finger up and fret that low E string at the same fret you're fretting the root at. So for the C, we're now going to have our first finger hop over and now fret the low E string at the 3rd fret too. Now listen to it. It sounds even thicker and heavier because it's adding a low G note. So now the lowest note you're playing in the chord is not the C. It is now the G. So technically it's like an inversion. Remember, an inverted chord or an chord inversion is whenever you play a chord and the lowest note in that chord is not the root note. So for instance here, I'm playing a C chord, a C, an E, and a G note. And the first way I showed you, the lowest note is the C. This way the lowest note is now the G. So it's kind of like an inverted chord inversion. And inverted chords are great because they have a little different timbre because you're hearing the notes at different places. The root is no longer the lowest note. You might have the 3rd or the 5th, and the other notes might be higher than normal. So it'll have a little different timbre. It'll still have that same chord flavor. It's not, I'm playing a C sus2. It's not going to play like it's not going to sound like an F sharp minor 7th, but it will still, it'll have that flavor, but a little different timbre. So check that out. There's a C sus2. Now I'll throw in that low G just by moving that first finger up and barring the low E string. I'm just going from the C sus2 to the D sus2, but in each chord I'm throwing in the low E string. And you get this really huge sounding chord. So if I also throw an E5 in there, right, you might just play, just jam. So it really kind of turns a huge sounding chord already into a mondo huge sounding chord. And especially if you add some gain to it and you're playing these heavy rhythms, mess around with that because those added intervals or added notes or inversion will give you a slightly different tone that's kind of unexpected and it will be different, you know. And for instance, with that chord, you can move it anywhere on the neck. That's such a movable chord, and you could add that low bass note. Yeah. So it sounds really cool. And it sounds good on acoustic too. You got a really nice, bright sounding acoustic and you throw those low bass notes in with these chords and whoo, man, it sounds really killer. So, you know, try it out. See if you like it and whatnot. I think you will. I like adding the gain to it and getting these really big chords. You know who does that a lot is a guy, the guitar player John Petrucci in Dream Theater. That guy is amazing. He has like almost like a black belt in music theory, but he really knows all these variations of chords and how to use them and when to throw them in. And he does a super job with it. If you like progressive rock, you know, you definitely want to check out some of their stuff because every person in that band is like a virtuoso. They're just monster players. And his chord work I find really, really interesting. So, you know, Side note. Anywho, this is David Taub. Hope you enjoyed this lesson. Check out our website, nextlevelguitar.com. We got all kinds of written lessons, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of video lessons, written lessons, jam tracks, forum, chord library. It's great. We have students from all over the world tuning in to this website. Take care and rock on.